state, but we grew up in Missouri. My background is special education. So the first half of my career, I was a special educator. And I've been in faith-based education. I was in Wood Valley for a little while, did middle school special ed there, and then had a baby, stayed home, worked privately, worked with kids one-on-one, and then went back. And I was a special educator, I don't know, maybe about 5 years when I went back. And then I became an administrator. So I've been a principal at the high school level and at the grade school level. So my certification is K-12, and I have been an administrator at K-12. And so I can walk the walk, I can talk the talk, and I am a lover of all things kid. I am an advocate. I feel like I've always connected with the parent side. So about a year and a half ago, my father has Alzheimer's, and they live about 2 hours from us. My husband travels. And about a year ago, I hired a life coach and discerned what I wanted to do with the second half of my life, as I also helped my mom care for that. And so we landed on, as an educator, I've always connected with parents. And that's a little bit different because most people say kids, right? And all things kids. But I have always enjoyed providing hope and guidance when necessary or needed or asked for. So anyway, started the process to become a parent coach and education consultant. And so I've been doing that for the last year. Last year, I was a part-time thing to this. I mentored our assistant to take over to be the principal. So I was there 6 days a week. And I started my business. Here, I've been working with the parents one-on-one. And I coaching, and then I also teach parent class to do education consulting for IT, cyber wars, those kind of things. The secret sauce to anything kiddo is executive functioning skills. It's the secret sauce. Whether your kiddo has ADHD or whether they're neurotypical, whether they're so before we kind of dive in, I want to kind of know who we're talking to. So let's say, who has kiddos in the range of like 0 to 10? 0 to 10. Okay, very good. And then we're like 10 to maybe, let's say 18. Where are we at there? Okay, good. So we're totally represented. Anybody have a hand in both? So think about your job. Think about your relationship. Think about your neighbor. What kind of skills do you have in order to have a successful relationship? And when I say successful relationship, it could just be kind, right? In order to have a kind working relationship or somewhat successful at your job or career, what are some skills? This is interactive, so shouting.
Communication.
Communication. You have to be able to communicate. Great. What else? Empathy. Empathy. Oh, there you go. Yes. Empathy. Anything else?
Assume the good.
Assume the good. Yeah, these are good. These are good. Anything else? So you're giving me great examples because these are examples that are not, if you're spiritual, God-given, right? They're things that you learn. You learn how to communicate. You learn how to empathize. You learn how to be kind. You learn how to assume the good. You learn how to assume the negative, whatever that might be. Well, they actually would fall under the scope of executive functioning skills. And executive functioning skills, I'm going to talk about 8 categories. A lot of people kind of jump around. Sometimes they swoosh them to 6 or 7. Sometimes they broaden them to 10. We're going to go 8, okay? And executive functioning skills have been studied for years. So this isn't a new thing, but I do believe they ought to give you a flip when you take the baby home at the hospital. I'm an advocate. Maybe this will be my next career. These are 8 really important skills that you're not born with. Okay, so you're born with those beautiful eyes. You're born with that beautiful skin, or you're crooked teeth. You're born with those things. That's what you're given. Okay, sometimes they're non-negotiable. You've got to deal with it. These are things that the adults in your life will teach you. Okay, 0 to now they're saying 25. My children have been working for 3 and 4 years. These are executive functioning skills, right? When I started out in the business in 1995, we really paid attention to the bell curve. Who is kind of familiar with the bell curve? It's that big curve, all right? And we would teach straight down the middle, and we would say the 50th percentile is kind of average. That's kind of where we want your kiddos. And then we would test them, and if they were really high over here, we say, oh, maybe they're gifted. We should give them some service. And if they're really low, we would say, oh, their IQ is low. We paid way too much attention to an IQ because now we have figured out it ain't the IQ. It ain't the IQ. You can be the smartest guy or girl in the room, but if you're not assuming the good, if you don't know how to communicate, if you don't know how to show up on time, doesn't matter, right? If you can't control yourself in certain ways, doesn't matter. So those 8 executive functioning skills are really, really important. So now we know to pay more attention to that than the IQ. Yay, that's good. Progress. I like it. So the executive functioning skills before we jump in, this is just a little bit of what it can help you with. Managing time, focus, recalling information, prioritizing, those kind of things. Here are the skills. These are the 8, okay? Now, I assume you're here. Raise your hand if you have a child or person in your home living with ADHD. I assumed everyone did because you're here, but everyone is very good. Well, yours are right. Yay, you're right. You did it. Okay. So if every child needs to learn these, just think how much more important it is that our kiddos who are neurodivergent, right, need to learn these. And it's going to take time. It's going to take time. So let's do self-monitoring. Self-monitoring is a higher level skill. Right around 3rd grade, it kind of picks up pace. So from about 0 to 2nd grade, so let's say 0 to 2nd grade is like, I think that's like 7, 8-year-old. You play with the kid next to you. You love everything about everyone in your class. Everyone's smart. Everyone's beautiful. Everyone's my friend. Right around 3rd grade, you start kind of noticing. And that's a self-monitoring thing. You kind of like, it is a little faster than me. Or I do like that friend a little bit more than this kind of friend. Or I'm pretty good at whatever I'm so bad at. Okay, so these little self-talk things start in. That's self-monitoring. It can be a good thing. It can be a hurtful thing. It can help us. We can set goals. We can move forward. We can become productive. Or if we don't know how to self-monitor, if we don't know how to compare, we might not have an awareness. Anybody in your home struggle with awareness? Like they don't, I'll use me, a really loud voice. And it's not because I'm a principal, it's because I grew up in a German household and we were loud. And my mom was loud, my dad was loud, my 5 siblings, I'm loud, okay? And if I don't know how to monitor that compared to the room, sometimes it could be overwhelming, right? So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to kind of break down one of these, and we're going to talk. We're going to talk about how to like naturally work on executive functioning skills without saying today we're working on executive functioning skills. Okay, it's just a natural thing that you can do easily with the little kids and the big kids. All right. Questions so far?
Nope. Talk a little bit louder if you can. Yeah, over here. So I got you over here. Go for it. Teach your voice.
I can do it. So emotional control, come a little closer here. Emotional control is kind of natural to start with because we remember that number we said it starts at birth. 0 to 25, age 25 is what we're talking about. So how does an itty bitty communicate with you? Right? It's their emotions. They yell, they cry, they giggle, that's it. And they have to learn early on how to control those emotions. Who is shocked? Who is shocked that we have to teach humans how to control emotions? Think about that. Yeah, please raise your hand. Aren't you a little surprised that it's not a God-given skill? It is something we learn. And how do we learn it when I'm 0 and I don't know how to communicate? Think about it. How do you teach a little bitty human to control their emotions. What did you do? So you get feedback. You told them, like you're being loud or take a deep breath or those kinds of things. Feedback. Okay, so verbally feedback. What did you say? Modeling. Which be good can be bad. Like I've given some lectures. Guess what I taught my kids to do? Taught them how to give a lecture. Yeah. All right. So that's how our kids are learning emotional control. Anybody want to do over? Yeah, exactly. I would like to go back and I would like to work a little bit. My son, though, was like inattentive. I like that, like kick him sometimes, kind of get going. And he really didn't have emotional outbursts at all. And sometimes I would take things away and put him, in timeout or whatever it is. And guess who had the emotional outburst? Me, because he didn't react. I wanted him to react, right? And that, what is that about? I wanted to irritate him. That's okay. So the really natural way to teach emotional control: walk away from frustrating situations. Now, your itty bitties. Fantastic. Okay, here are some ways to help control impulse. Play games that improve waiting and taking turns. Anybody in their family that really, really struggle with playing games and taking turns? Why is that so hard? Why do you think that's so hard? I think it's hard because we assume we can do it. I think it's skill. So we as adults come to the table and we're like, everybody should be able to take turns. It's actually a learning. It's kind, right? So by the age 8 and 9, when everybody has one skill, but our kids are not as mature emotionally, we assume everybody at your age can do this. Why can't you do it? It's okay. Let's provide some avenues outside of the classroom, outside of the organized sports, outside of the organized whatever they're in, at home, that will help them take turns, wait, set a goal, see things going on, model and role play tough situations. Give me an example of that. How would that look in a home? How would that look in a home? Any teachers in the class? Any teachers out there? Okay, I got one. I got 2. I got 3. Okay, I would do this in my home, and I did this before my kid was even diagnosed. Like, probably snip it on me. But anyway, instead of charades just being movies and games, we would sit around and we're like, okay, let's put some scenarios in there. And we could do some movies and we could do some games, but then we could also do something about losing a game of kickball. Charades, no boards, right? Charades, no boards. Game of kickball. I'll give you 10 great skits on how to lose a kickball game. Like at elementary school, it's the hot button. So coming up with some scenarios. Come on in. There's some space up here. Some space up here. Coming up with some scenarios and letting them come up with some scenarios, writing them on a piece of paper, throwing them in the bucket when you're dialoguing. And you might learn something about what they struggle with their friend group and those kinds of things. But giving them an opportunity to role play. Are you going to let them role play? Or you role play? Learning in both, right? One, anytime they have an opportunity to see their mom or dad be silly, they really like it. They might say they don't, but they do. Yeah, short-term and long-term goals. Anybody here have an example of maybe a short-term goal or a long-term goal that they've worked on with their kids?
It's like doing a math assignment. You got to do 5 problems in a certain amount of time.
Okay.
Because otherwise it might take an hour.
Right.
So as a short-term goal.
Short-term goal, that's great.
Set a timer so that they can see I have 10 more minutes to finish 2 more problems or whatever.
That's right, that's right. And what about, just like, anybody have anyone in their home that has trouble getting up in the morning? Yeah. All right. Oh, yeah. What about a short-term goal, like setting your own alarm clock, getting your own self up? You get to pick the breakfast or whatever that is, like, that's a short-term goal. For 3 days, 5 days is a lot, folks. When we start setting week-long goals, it's a lot. The only way we really want more and learn from something is when we conquer it. So success is contagious. So starting out with a short-term goal of 2 days is okay. Set the bar low. Help them hit the bar. High five that thing to death. Boogie dance. Do whatever you need to do. Teenager, just act cool. Well, that's awesome. Didn't see that coming. Think you can do it again tomorrow? I mean, like, don't go forward.
That's good.
Shane, yeah.
Set it down fast. But they might get a little sarcasm. They might
I'm
get a little-
ironically trying to listen to the meeting tonight that's going on right now.
So you can go over 4. If you make it to Saturday, I'm telling you what, talk about all week. Whatever it is, I don't know. It's Chipotle. It's Chipotle. I'm not talking about it. But short-term goals, really, really important because you're controlling impulse, right? What happens if you set a goal of setting that alarm and getting up and they don't do it? What do you do? What's the conversation? Scale back the time frame. I like that. Oh, she said scale back the time frame. Give an example. Break it down a little more.
You said like 1 or 2 days. I mean, in a classroom, sometimes it's 1 hour.
Yeah. Maybe it's like, if you get up tomorrow on your own, that type of thing. Yeah. I was thinking maybe even if the goal is to get up at 7, okay, maybe we try to get up at 6:45. If your kiddo doesn't hit 7, you know what I would on and well, may or may not agree with me, but I'd say, that's a shot. No big deal. Give it a shot tomorrow. And not one of the whole, well, like drugging up the past, none of those things. So like, try to again, help them make the goal. And then when they hit the goal, celebrate hard. Play games that are quick, short. Simon says, read, add concentration, chess, battleship. Okay, the chess and the battleship are much longer, but it's just one-on-one, right? So that's easier. Then sometimes the freeze tag, you might have 10 kids there, but you have to know your kid. So start out with games, you know they can right? Just kind of slowly turn up the heat. Okay. Questions about impulse control. This is arguably one of the hardest things to work because it bleeds into everything else, right? The planning, the prioritizing, the memory, all of those. Impulse control is something I, as an adult, have to struggle with. So keeping in mind the developmental needs of the age with, one, can kids their age even do this? And if they can't, is it okay that they're still struggling with this? Absolutely. What can I do to help them? Where can I meet them? And how can we take baby steps to move forward? Working memory. Really, really important because everything school related is working memory. Everything. Okay. And our kids, this generation, they have a lot of avenues to get answers. One of them sits in the minivan. And so every time they answer their question, they don't have to think much past your answer. So working memory, easy thing that you can do is answer a question with help them think. Help them recall, help them know they have the answer, help them think. A lot of times we ask a question and then follow up with the answer. How do you feel? How was school? Okay, you make friends. Did you play on the playground? Yeah. Did you play ball? Did you go to lunch? Did you eat hot dogs? Yeah, you did. It's like, oh, Okay, our kids can't process that fast. How was school today? Was great. So these questions are going nowhere. Who did you sit by at lunch? Who's your best friend? What do you like about Dominic? What makes him funny? What makes funny faces? Okay, so questions that I can't just take a yes or no to, right? And she's thinking, she's recalling the information. Working memory can start as simple as categorizing groceries as they come out of the car. Okay, you're in charge of fruits and vegetables, you're in charge of canned goods, I'm gonna get the high step, you're gonna get the low, whatever, that's working memory, right? You're listening to directions and you're applying the direction. Working memory can be as simply as what is our bedtime routine? Working memory for our teenagers, really hard to drive a car these days because everything is dependent on GPS. So working memory starting at age 10, 11, 12 is just north, south, east, west. The street we live on, the cul-de-sac we live on, the neighborhood we live in, the city we live in. All of these things are dependent on memory, okay? And so helping our kids with memory, because when they're sitting in a classroom and they have to recall facts, information, we don't want them to panic. We don't want them to get frustrated. We don't want them to feel like they can't do it. We have to help them develop coping skills. What are some questions about working memory? Is anybody surprised that this is a skill you have to teach? Yeah, give me more.
I just thought it was something that's hardwired in your brain. That was something,
Right, it's something we can expand, something we can grow, right? Let's think of states and capitals. How hard did we have to work in third grade to learn the states and capitals, right? Right, so that's a learned skill. Where are my piano players? Okay, I had 8 years of piano, 8 years, 8 years. I cannot play the piano. Why? I didn't want to practice, right? And so if I had practiced like my mom told me or my teacher told me, I probably would have been a little bit better. Are you good?
No, I'm a music teacher, but. Not my main thing. No, piano's not my main thing, but I can kind of poke around.
Not real quick, So very good. But it's a learned skill that doesn't just happen, right? Like you can kind of poke around on it because you were taught and you practice a little bit more of those kinds of things. Just like states and capitals, just like multiplication. There is space in our brain that we have to expand and we have to grow. The more we use it, the better we get at it. And that's why technology is kind of robbing our kids a little bit, because when they're doing their passive activity with inquiry, whether it's a cell phone or a smart TV or whatever, they're not engaging, they're not collaborating, they're not critical thinking, they're not recalling information, they're not working on their memory skills. And so it actually trains your brain to be lazy. So we need to make sure that whatever we're doing with our screens or with our conversation or with our games or whatever, we're training our kids to engage. Yes.
So is this the part of it where they know it, but because they have this, that, everything else going on, they have to find where that file is and where that answer is? Is that what this is?
Yeah, I think that it, yes.
Yes, there, but no, I have to go to this first, look at that file, and it's behind this, but under that and over it.
Well, some of our kiddos might have double whammy. So they might have dyslexia, they might have a learning disability on top of their ADHD, right? So the double whammy is dyslexia is more of a memory thing than it is anything. We tend to think it is a reading and writing. It is, but it is a rapid recall deficit. So our ability to recall information at the same pace of our peers is the deficit. So that's where the lag comes into reading and writing. So the more we work with a dyslexic, we're not necessarily growing their memory capacity. We are helping them recall the information, become more familiar with it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Well, and actually, I was having a thought along the same lines. What I'm hearing in a lot of these examples, it's like there's two things involved. There's two different either means of communication or modalities. So like reading a book out loud and asking them to then your chapter, like not only are you seeing the words, but you're saying them out loud, or
Right.
the person will say them.
Right.
So there's two different things going on, or maybe you rewrite something, so there's multiple things happening that are really solidifying and building the muscle for you.
So from what I have experienced and what I was taught when I went through my dyslexia training, we learn, our brains learn and connect in groups of 3, 7, and 9. So what is 3, 7, and 9? Your phone number, remember when we all used to remember phone numbers, right? You got the area code and then 7 digits is this and then, okay. So anytime we can do something in a mode of 3, so auditory, kinesthetic, and possibly, I don't know, we'll throw in the verbal as well, but anytime we can do things that connect, sometimes it's having the scent in the room really helps kids. So anytime you can do something in 3 modalities, it's really, really going to help. So if you have a child that has gone through any type of training with responsive centers or anything like that, they might get out the shaving cream to be working with their letters. And it's not just the shaving cream, which is the texture thing. It's not just actually writing it, but it's also the smell. All right. So they're doing these things in a way that helps the brain connect. So absolutely right. Absolutely right. Talk to kids as you're driving, teach them directions and roads on the side. Really, really important. Turn the screens off and help them realize how many McDonald's could we pass on the way to school? How many quick trips are there on the road on the way to school? When I get to the post office, do I turn right or left? Like whatever that is, help them engage, memorize, talk, communicate. Really important. This one, asking children to repeat steps to the directions. So important because again, it's that verbal thing. I'm saying it so you hear it, but then when you say it back to me, you're again with the verbal. So if I would say, okay, time for bed, I need teeth, I need jammies, and I need, what's another thing? Teeth, jammies, and potty. Thank you. Teeth, jammies, and pet. So what do you need? What do you need to do? What do I need from you before you go to bed? Yeah.
Teeth, body.
That's it. Nice job. Okay. So me saying to you, because there's a really good chance they're not listening. Or they listen, but they're going to be distracted by something on the stairs on the way up, right? And so now I'm playing with my Legos and then whatever. And so the next whole thing is there. So anytime we can connect in multiple ways, we're building the executive function skills, we're connecting with our kids. Number 4, flexible thinking. What is this? Flexible thinking. The ability to move freely. Number 4, flexible thinking. What is this? It's this. Flexible thinking. The ability to move freely from one situation to the next, successfully adapting when thinking and emotion in order to respond appropriately to the task at hand. Okay. Who's shocked that flexible thinking is allowed? So, yeah. So in my days of high school, some of our brightest, most talented individuals struggled with anxiety and they were crippled by this. I almost got an amen. Yeah. So they're so intelligent. They're so capable. Why are they so stuck? What's holding them back? It's the flexible thinking, but why is it holding them back? Do you want to share?
No, we just saying that both techniques struggle with it.
transition.
Why? Why do they struggle with the transition?
Maybe I'm struggling to move from doing one task that they might go things around and they're involved in to getting to the next one where it's like, I don't want to do that. And 5 minutes later, it's this thing about it, and then they don't want to do the next thing.
So they're struggling with really emotional control and impulse control. Those are 2 things. So they're also struggling with this flexible thinking. And this could also be diet, right? This could be routine morning. This could be just all kinds of things. What we saw in high school is it was the fear of the what if. What if I didn't do? What if I should have done? What if everyone else has? What if I have it? What if I ain't got it? They're so stuck in that thinking that it's really hard to move forward. So the fear of the unknown is really, really hard for them. So that's why hitting the bar really low so they feel confident and successful and capable. Like if you're setting the bar so high and they never hit it, who's gonna feel capable? Who's gonna feel like it's worth doing? I am not good at math. I've never been good at math. And I actually married my husband because he tutored me as a junior in high school. I was failing algebra 2 and something calculus. He tutored me. He was smart and it worked out. But I can tell you right now, he was shocked that I couldn't do math. And why? It's because I wasn't trying. These are words that a teenager said to another teenager who wanted to date me. To this day, he has said those things to my children too when it comes to math. It's not that we're not trying. The way I'm trying isn't working. I need you to teach me a different way to try. You keep yelling at me, whatever, it's not going to suddenly connect because you were loud or talking slower at me or whatever, right? It's not for lack of effort. And I think we forget that with our kids. Like, things are tough, not for lack of effort. It's because the way I was taught did not connect. Help me connect another way. Break it down for me. Drop the bar and help me be successful. The only way I will want to try harder next time is if I actually accomplish it the first time in some capacity. The flexible thinking is really, really hard for our kids. And we have to actually teach them. And so these conversations are really hard. Changing rules to game. Let kids do this too. Okay, so let's talk about chutes and ladders. You slide down a ladder and you climb up a slide. That would be a complete opposite turn upside down. That would have thrown my daughter to drink at age 8. Like that would have been like, no way. There's no way. That's not how the game is played, right? Really important to learn that you can be flexible. You can do fun things. That change is good. You can handle change. Is a big thing. A lot of times we don't want to transition because I don't know if I can handle it. And I don't want to fail anymore. Don't want to fail anymore. Okay, tell silly jokes or puns. Love this. Teaching kids how to take a joke is really important, but I want to be really clear, and I say this with teachers probably 12 times a year. Sarcasm is only funny if we both think it's funny. Okay? And so as an adult, even as a parent, if I say something sarcastic, doesn't mean it's funny. Doesn't mean it's fun. And the kids might not even get it. Okay, so be really, really careful with your sarcasm. There's a difference between jokes and puns and sarcasm. So jokes can be about me. It can be about things that don't have feelings. But if I am making you a joke at our dinner table, well, we don't know if she can't do that. Like that's not funny. Especially if it's coming from our moms and our dads. Use ordinary objects in different ways. We're all like, and then add a change to the daily schedule or routine. Who gets a little when I say that? This is hard for parents. This is hard for parents, okay? But this teaches kids that they can do hard things. They can be flexible. They can be flexible. Self-monitoring. We talked a little bit about this earlier. I'm going to make sure I'm not going to like the ability to monitor one's monitor one's own performance and to measure it against some standard of what is needed or expected, also called metacognition. Okay, and so we have to be careful because we don't want our kids comparing themselves to other kids or other situations and feeling bad, but we do want them to be able to monitor their own behavior based on the entire room. An example would be, let's say, going to a library, right? You have to be able to monitor when I walk into a library, I cannot start singing as a, that's not the appropriate way to handle yourself in a library. That's a self-monitoring skill. I know my audience, I know what I'm doing. This, if you don't quite get impulse control and you don't quite get self-monitoring, it's a death. And I want you all to understand that I'm a fan of schools. I have been a principal, I have been a teacher, I'm a fan of tests, I'm a fan of all of it, but not at the. So make sure that you are helping your kids do tough things, but we're doing it for a reason that is appropriate to the skill. So accommodation should support growth, and you should be able to move and function and be successful with accommodation. That is what an accommodation is for. It's not to hold you back. It's not to make you feel different, drop the bar. It's not, it's to help grow, to meet you where you're at so that you grow. Self-monitoring can possibly happen if you aren't aware of what you can and cannot do. And if you're always failing, you feel like you can't do anything. So make sure that your accommodations are helping the self-monitoring. Okay. Practice mindfulness. What does that mean? So we get out the yoga mats, turn down the lights. What does mindfulness mean when it's to a kiddo? Being aware of the present moment. It's that simple, but kids, back to the flexible thinking, they're not in the present moment. They're worried about what's coming up, what they didn't do, what they're still worried about the kickball game they lost. Okay, but we're in the classroom now. So teaching kids to be mindful is really, really important. And you have to carve out time and space for this. The other piece of mindfulness that I think is really important is that nobody is motivated by a lecture about what they used to do or what they'll never be able to do if they don't do this. So you're never going to be able to blah, blah, blah if you don't learn something in. Okay. Oh, was that all it took? Like, I just needed that lecture and now I'm ready to roll. Like, so make sure that when you're talking to kids, it's about the present moment. You're not dragging up the past. You're not scaring with the future because that teaches them how to be in the moment. Okay, so keeping things present. Work in a group. Journals and reflection questions, set and monitor goals. When giving praise, compliment the action, not the accomplishment. What does that mean? When giving praise, compliment the action.
You tried really hard.
Okay.
Instead of, I like the way that you put effort into whatever.
Okay, tell me what I did. Let's unloaded the dishwasher. Unloaded the dishwasher. Compliment me.
Like you remembered.
That's awesome. That's a really good one. Everyone, right? Like, thanks for unloading the dishwasher. When you do that, it helps me. When you remember on it helps me. Thanks for doing that. Instead of hey, dishwasher, giving them actual details, like when you remember to unload the dishwasher, it really helps me. When you put the towels in the dryer, it really helps me. Like, make sure you're telling them what they're doing that is helpful, that is good, that is great. Task. This is its own PowerPoint. The ability to start a task or activity and to independently create one's ideas, responses, or problem-solving strategies to achieve desired outcomes. The appropriate procrastination, the opposite of procrastination. Please hear me. This is a high level skill. when we expect 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old to do this spot on all the time, we're missing the mark. Okay? Task initiation is a learned skill. It isn't something that our guardian angel gave us and we just magically come out of the moon with. It doesn't happen that way. Okay? Sure, some of us are wired a little bit more to go and get him or whatever, but task initiation is something that to connect with, you want to do. You have to understand the importance of doing it. You have to want to do it either intrinsically for yourself or motivated enough to do it for somebody else. Those are high level skills. So it would make perfect sense that our children with ADHD who struggle with maturity are not going to be right on target with this. Okay. When my son was in grade school, he went to a K-8 school. My daughter, she was a task initiator. She was awesome. She was whatever. She did fantastic. He had a lot going on, but I did it. And I could manage it. Why? Because he just had a little K-8 school. But then when he got to high school, we had multiple schedules. He was on the JV team as soccer team as a freshman. There was just so much to remember. And I remember we had this huge meltdown and I was going back up to school one more time. It was 9:39. I had keys because I was the assistant principal and I thought to myself, how do people do this without keys to school? That was really a real conversation. Like, I have such empathy for parents at this moment. This is ridiculous. What I was doing is I was trying to manage his behaviors, not his symptoms. Okay, so behaviors and symptoms are totally different things. He was unorganized. I was trying to manage his unorganizedness. He was forgetful. He was impulsive, and I was just constantly trying to behaviors. When I finally stopped and got head and put on my teacher hat and my administrative hat, and I'm like, what are you good at? Start with that. What can you do and what can you accomplish? And let's make sure you're doing those things all the time and I'm high-fiving you for it so you feel like you have some confidence. Because right now you feel pretty beat down. So he had to learn how to do a lot of things on his own because mom can't do it, even though I was in the building, but he had to do it. But he had to have confidence to actually initiate something at a new level. That's why this is such a high level skill. Because I was really bad at algebra too, and I really thought I was trying really hard. Wow, it's like I quit. Because when you feel like you fail over and over, why would you even start? So making sure they can do things, you're working from a moment of strength always. You're recognizing what they are good at. You are the inner voice. So you want them to know they can do things. Okay? That's the only way they're going to start, initiate, or try things that or had never done. Planning and so I'm going to kind of hop back. Planning and prioritizing. The next one is organization. Why are they two different things? Why are they two different things? Planning and prioritizing, organization. What's the difference? Right. So organization, let's think stuff, right? Let's think category. Let's think, things that we can compartmentalize. Let's think about a backpack. Let's think about a locker. Let's think about a car. Those kinds of things. Those are all hot holy messes with children in general, right? Because they're all learning how to the other one, organization. It's a learned skill. Okay. Some people are drawn to it. They can do it naturally. Some people cannot. Planning and prioritizing, the ability to manage current and future tasks, demands, and set achieve goals. So the great thing about ADHD, did you think I was going to say this? This is the great thing about ADHD, your ability to hyper focus on certain things. Okay, that hyper focus, once you're out of school, you're going to make $20. Once you figure out what you can do and do it well, it's going to be fine. It's going to be ugly until we get to that point, but it's going to be okay. So here's the thing. We have to be able to keep the race, right? Keep the pace, keep pushing forward so that we are modeling planning and prioritizing. We are verbalizing what planning and prioritizing looks like. Because it takes the high level skill, doesn't just happen. It's gonna take a lot of trial and error in order for it to just naturally happen. Okay, so making sure that the future task and demands and setting goals and achieving them. That's why sometimes you just gotta drop that. When I used to work with kiddos, who were dyslexic, and we would work on reading and writing and those kinds of things. And you know, you're working with the 3rd or 4th grader. And guess what? You start with the alphabet sometimes just to kind of get the confidence going. This is dumb, this is easy, this, you know, whatever. Look how much you know. Look how much you know. Look how smart you are. Okay? Get some confidence going. Get some mojo flowing. Help kids feel good about things, because this stuff is gonna get middle school and they get in high school. Okay, so make sure we're building confidence. We're working from a moment of strength always. Next one is organizations. That's the stuff, the ability to put things in order physically and mentally. This includes physical spaces, personal belongings, as well as cognitive items. So this cognitive items, of course, that applies to a lot of things that you do at school, right? And so this level skill ends at 0 all the way up to 25. And back to this grocery, back to cleaning up, that organizing the tennis shoes, like whatever, all of it. Answer questions, help them problem solve, help them ask, because everything I have talked about tonight, you know, you do on a daily basis with your job, with your family, me with my dad. I mean, it's really, he owned it a company, he's really smart, he has Alzheimer's, he's 82 years old, and some days he would sit with it, and the next day it's just not there. And it's, oh, we're just working on it. He's working on the basics, dropping that bar so he can feel confident and engaged, right? Okay. So here they are again, if you want to take a picture of that. So you have them. We have time for organic questions, or I'm a teacher and I always come prepared, so I ask the questions, some thinking things, some class reflection. How would executive functions help the school to a child's ability to be successful in school? I kind of think we're all right. But let's do this. Let's do this. This is real parents. So as an administrator, especially at the high school level, I used to be the assistant principal at St. James Academy, and I was the principal at St. Michael the Archangel. And our kids, and they were great for all of our kids that had, who were neuro divergent, and whether we had kids with autism or syndrome, or we just had kids that, you know, had some immature social skills. They always had a great experience at school because they were usually included at the time, but then when they went home, it was tough. There wasn't a football game, right? Those kinds of things. So how is it, what does it look like if your kiddo is struggling with some executive functioning skills when it comes to friends? What does that look like?
My son would have a friend and have no idea what to do with them. So that task initiation of being able to go, oh, let's go outside and kick the ball around or whatever, he would just be like, I have no idea what to do with this person. Yeah.
So what did you do in that situation?
Like try to guide them into an activity, and then he'd do it for a little bit, and then he'd be done.
Yeah.
And then he'd look at
Yes, brainstorming on the way to pick them up or whatever. Like, what are some things? Yeah.
what we could do.
The pre-party, right? Yeah, we could do a little pre-party planning and kind of talk about like what are some things we could do, so it kind of has those back pocket. And as they slide through those in like 90 minutes, and you still have 90 minutes left, but that is such a good example. 90 is really all you gotta do. Yeah. How old is your son?
He is fun.
He's 12.
This is what it's for.
Yeah. And we also have to give them the grace to be awkward. Like, it's okay to be awkward. It is okay to have all the answers and just say, hey, like, That just doesn't happen. These are learned skills. Some kids have it, but most kids don't. Most kids don't. And that's okay too. We have to give them that grace. I saw some other.
Actually, I was going to say, it was a comment, we came for a play date and she wrote a list, like a chick. And I was like, I took a picture of it.
You know, she was good at self
Could have been
monitoring.
a-
That's communication working memory, yeah. All those things, yeah, I love that. That was to my kid, my daughter. I was probably, oh, good. And then I saw your hand.
Yeah, I was gonna say on the flexibility thing, like my son and his friends, they have lots of games, very random games they come up with and play. I can feel like he'll like to change the rules and it's fine, like he's okay with that, but if other people change the rules, then there's problems.
Yeah.
Like we're annoyed about that, like they just change the rules and
So
I don't understand why they think it's okay to change the
Right.
rules. And I'm like, well, how do you think they feel about it? And it
Yeah.
never seems like.
So
Think about like. well,
there,
How does that?
so really, I mean, if we want to talk in general, it's that self-monitoring around third grade. These kids can empathize and sympathize.
The other friend is like me, and the other one I have no idea, but they all, I mean, it's like a gaggle, like, you know.
So how important is it that you are setting that up with some cousins, with some people in the neighborhood, with brothers and sisters? Like you're doing that outside of the play date, outside of being at school, teaching him that, you know, this can happen, right? And so if you are controlling the narrative. Trying to go down. The other thing is like in that moment when they're at your and they're it's really important not to say, calm down, you're okay. Am I okay? Because I don't feel okay. And that's where our kids get into trouble because we're telling them they're okay, but their body in my K-8 school that I love so very much. I always have Play-Doh, I always have puzzles, Rubik's Cube, fidget toys, whatever. Kiddos would come in from PE was always the worst thing for kiddos because it's an organized game, there are rules, you know, all these things. So the explosion happens. That kiddo coming in my office, me telling them to, okay, you can't talk to your teacher this way. You can like, so me just kind of getting in the basket, walking away. Sometimes they get the basket off, you know, sometimes never. And these are little kids, it's the middle school kids, these are whatever. But giving them time to be in the moment. That's when the conversation happens. And the whole time, I'm controlling my emotions. But I'm not too. It's the 10th time you've been kicked out of it. You know, people
Space. One child is. And they take off.
Yeah.
You know, how do you control that? Because typically I want to say, come up and say, come back here, so, we can talk about it or whatever.
Okay, so let's give me more, like, did they run down Johnson Drive? Because then I'm calling, please, because some kids are alone,
Yeah, no.
and they do that. Are they just running to the basement?
To the room, there.
Going to the room.
Another part of the house. Just
You just slammed the door. I can tell you that, because that happened, right? All your time, but, a very wise counselor once showed me this, okay, this is the volcano, work with me, this is our volcano. Here we are. So your kiddo is here are your emotions, all right, and this is pretty manageable, but as they move up here to explosion, nothing here is nothing here is rational, nothing here can be further processed. So them screaming at me and me now screaming back at them, which I've done, okay, everybody has done this. It takes some time and I figured out many times, but really this is more my daughter struggled with anxiety a little bit in high school. And me telling her she had a bad attitude was not helping anything. You know what that helped me? Because it made me feel like it's her problem. She has the attitude, not me. Right? Okay. Once stop that. And she was able to calm back down. And then we were able to talk about it later on. And later on could be 30 minutes, it could be a day. It could be 3 days. Does anybody in here have a child who ADHD and driving? Great, God bless you. So my kiddo got a ticket going really fast, 3 digits. I'll just pop there. Okay. And my husband knew I would be a person, right? And he's like, whatever. So I was smart and I didn't say anything. I just left the room and I cried. I'm like, I think it just hit me like, oh my gosh, he can't drive a car. Like, oh, what is this is at work? And
Lots of crying.
crying and yelling and like, oh, what were you thinking? What were you not thinking? All these whatever. So I mean, in my position, I had access to things. Okay, so I understand that part, and I think part of the reason anyway, I called the resource officer and I said, I just got a ticket and it was like $100. I wasn't even arrested. So this is ridiculous. I'm really mad. I want to kind of talk me off the ledge in a way. But after I calmed down, 3 or 4 days later, whatever, then we had the rest. Right? Then we're sitting at the table. And you know what I learned from that whole experience? And he was only 16. Again, he's 24 and he's really awesome right now. He was saying inside of him everything I was thinking. And I am so grateful I never said it. Like, you this, you that, you could have killed somebody. Like, I could have said all of it. I probably said it upstairs. But I my brain not coming out of my mouth because he was already beating himself up. And he didn't drop on it. We were able to have a really good conversation. And from that moment on, it was really a little bit more about the trust building thing. But my volcano resolved nothing, right? And it probably would have ignited his. But in the moment when the kid storms off, think about what you are trying to accomplish. Right? Are you trying to teach them that it's not appropriate? Or are you trying to make a point or whatever it is? Because whatever you're trying to accomplish won't be accomplished demanding it at that point. Give yourself grace and faith to just make your point at a time. No. I think really important. And also, you're adults, you can have this information. You get to set the bar. You get to you and I can talk maybe afterwards, because I don't want to say anything on camera. But here's the thing, get your back. I used to work with a really, really smart man. He was at the high school level, and he had 7 kids, and one of them had Down syndrome. Okay, and he had kids that went to KU, and he had none of them to KU. He went to KU. He had a kid that went to Notre Dame, and then he had, he just had this beautiful family. And he used to tell families all the time, I can give your kid all A's that won't get him to Notre Dame. Okay, there are expectations and boundaries to get into Notre Dame. So the grades don't mean anything to me. And you have to decide as a family what they mean to you. Okay, so 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders not getting all A's and B's. Okay, but these kids learning how to have functional skills that will help them have healthy relationships and jobs. Put that on camera. Yeah. Really important. If they lose their self-identity, if they lose their self-confidence, if they lose their will to initiate, if they lose their will to try, what's it for? Okay, so you're forming kids for the world, not just 7th grade. So just figure out what the grades mean to you and tell your kids that too. That's it. Because I know some really, really, really smart kids that have graduated with really, really crappy grades and have gone on to do great things. Yeah. Is that it?
You tell me. We have a question
Okay.
online about an example of an accommodation for self-monitoring that works.
Okay, gosh. Need a Dr. Pepper. Self-monitoring. Okay, so what I want to stay away from, I'm gonna start with that. What I want to stay away from is a lot of extrinsic, all right, extrinsic rewards for self-monitoring. Like, oh, you get to have some stickers, you get to have a Jolly Rancher. Like, intrinsically, we want these kids to really connect with it. So one of the things I like is the ability to put a star next to someone, give a high five. Those kinds of things are great, but we need to make sure that that's not the only motivator. Okay, so if they're only being motivated by stars and Jolly Ranchers, right? We want them to feel good. We want them like, holy smokes, like we want them to connect with it because it's the only way they're going to want to do it again. Okay, so in a sense of self-monitoring, I'm thinking, do academically, socially, emotionally. What do they want?
I don't know. Let's see, Lori, you want academically, socially, emotionally? She may have dropped off.
Well, let's just do socially, because believe it or not, that it's kind of a big thing these days. All right. So socially, you may have to engage with a counselor and ask about friend groups, lunch butts, those kinds of things. I once had a counselor that, she would say, oh, I'm working with the 2nd grader girls, we're from, oh, the 4th grade. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But what about these kids that are like, not necessarily making friends? Like, can we kind of like organically, whatever? And so she had a mixed group of all different kind of age. And their maturity level was pretty spot on, but they weren't, actually the same age. And after about 4 or 5 months of just having these whatever group, she's like, I have to tell you, so-and-so had a party, invited everybody, and you should have seen all the questions. Will we do this? Are we going to do this? Like, she's like, it was so cool. And so that's a self-monitoring thing, right? Like that was them asking for outside guidance, right? Whether it was teachers, myself, or parents saying, hey, can you help with my kids learning how to make friends? Have an adult model what good organic conversation looks like. It's not about, here I am, now I'm talking about me, I, pretty great. All the other kids like, yeah, I'm teaching you how to say, now, can you ask her a question about her family? Okay, I'm teaching you how to ask questions and those kinds of things. And then after a while, they have monitored themselves, they desired friends, they desired it getting together, and it all kind of fell into pieces. So that's a social piece, but that would have never happened without adults in the situation, right? And so you have to understand when to put yourself in and when to take yourself out. Yeah,
Good.
yeah, good.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you so much, Jodie. That was amazing. Horizon is nice enough to let us use this room, but they want to go home. And so I know we all want to stay and talk to Jodie, but if we could like move it outside as quickly as possible so that he can get out of here, that would be awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Sure.
Yeah, you're good. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you. Did you have to put the back together somewhere?
No, I think it's good.